Next 3 years, I expect there will be more new plantations coming in game, and it will be more yields because the coffee prices, green coffee prices, are so high that farmers are now happy as never, and this is really good.
This was Yana Mikhailova, head of Coffee Zone Europe at Nestlé. Welcome to the Coffee Chronicles, the podcast series in which Deloitte explores the trends, innovations, and personalities of the coffee industry. I'm Daniel Laude, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Yana Mikhailova. She's a seasoned professional at Nestlé and leads their coffee business across Europe. Yana is also a passionate proponent of sustainability in coffee production, and she believes that every player in the supply chain needs to take responsibility to protect the future of coffee. In this episode, Yana describes the latest trends and developments in the coffee market. She shares her vision for a sustainable future where supply meets demand, and she explains what Nestlé is doing to make this happen. Enjoy our conversation. Yana, let me welcome you to the Coffee Chronicles. I'm really happy you're on the podcast.
Thank you for the invitation, Daniel. And, it's always a pleasure to talk about coffee. Coffee, as you know, is a very important category for the group, for Nestle. And it's an amazing category by design. So it's connecting people, cultures, and it's one of my big passions. So thank you for inviting.
That's what I wanted to start with. I know that's one of your big passions, because you've said once in a conversation with me that for you it's very important to prepare your own coffee in the morning or during the day. It's a kind of a ritual for you, your special moment. What's your preparation method of coffee? What do you have as a setup?
In coffee, you do not choose a preparation method, you choose your cup. So the fact, how is the taste of the cup and what you like. And for me, morning coffee should be smooth, big. It's usually a long cup. So for me, there is no morning without Nescafe. So for me, I will choose either Nescafe Gold or Nescafe Espresso, but it should be Nescafe Long Black Cup. And indeed, I need to do it myself because this is indeed part of morning ritual. And I'm sure almost all of us, we have a special moment when we grab a cup of coffee, either on the go or at home. For me, it's at home. But you choose the taste of this morning cup. And then later on, during the day, I'm much more flexible. So a cup will stay be black, but most probably it will be a portioned coffee with the machine, much stronger taste profile. Probably it will be one of the espressos.
You just used the words special moment, because I also think if we look at the industry now, there's a very special moment in the industry. 2025 has been a really interesting year. If we just, for example, look at the coffee price, record coffee price, what have been some of the events or developments that really stood out to you if we look back at the year?
I will say it's not only 2025. I think this is a very high point of this really pressure on coffee industry. Indeed,
Hmm.
it's not probably the easiest year, and for sure it's connected with the high coffee prices. But the start of this rally of the green coffee prices started much earlier. It started a few years ago, and I think the situation just been aggravated and aggravated, and that's now it reached their coffee prices, which the market never seen probably in the last decades. And the starting point was, we can name few. So start of COVID, sharp increase in the coffee consumption. And then sequentially few years of abrupt weather events and climate change really impact coffee output, coffee production. So, and this pushed the coffee prices to the level which we've never seen before. It's now up to 3 times high in Arabica, more or less the same in Robusta. And in coffee, when you sell coffee, it's coffee. It's impacting the consumer price quite substantially. So it's the industry is under big pressure. Nevertheless, I should say that the coffee category is relatively resilient because it's part of the, as we were just discussing, it's part of the resource. So consume people are who need cup of coffee, but the market is evolving, market is emerging. And then if I will say that climate will be the first big part of the negative impact on the coffee output, coffee crops. But then you have further aggravation, all these geopolitical tensions. They are adding more pressure on the overall supply chain and on the whole value chain. And this means that it takes more time, more weeks to green coffee in Europe. It takes longer, it costs more. So, and all this put quite a pressure on the consumer prices.
And what's very interesting, I think, that alongside all these disruptions, all these developments that you've just lined out, there have also been many innovations in the market. The industry is not standing still. What would you say are the main innovations that really stood out for you?
If I may, let me step a little bit back, not from the innovations, but the market trends, because innovations we are creating the trends or we're serving the trends. I think some very interesting shifts, I would say even tectonic shifts are happening in coffee, because before coffee was usually black, maybe people were adding a little bit of milk, but the main need state it was serving was energy. So the people were drinking coffee for energy. And now, if you look on all the cups consumed in the world, the consumers are choosing indulgence. So more indulgent cups, and it's fascinating to have so many variety of different indulgence cup of coffee which are offered. And usually the trend is coming from out of home. It comes later on into in home coffee, in retail coffee, but the trends are usually starting and settling in coffee world and out of home. So these indulgent cups started in out of home, and then they landed very nicely with in home coffee, usually with pods. And the same, the other big trend in coffee world will be cold coffee. And cold coffee as a trend started to emerge some years ago, but now it's becoming really big. And again, it's if you look how the consumers are choosing coffee in out of home, in some geographies, some countries, overseas, 70% of the cup now the youngsters are choosing, this Gen Z and younger consumers, younger people, they will choose cold coffee. And I think this is, again, amazing because it's gives a lot of hope and opportunities because when the coffee market is expanding so much, it's stepping into different segments and it's good for the category. So I think that's one of the reasons I feel that coffee industry is so resilient because it's always innovative. And now, connected to these trends, we were talking indulgence and we were talking cold coffee. So we can see quite a rapid development and very curious development in ready to drink coffee. So we can combine this with another trend, coffee on the go, because the world is changing. It's very fast. Consumers would like to take their cup of coffee wherever they want. So this everything which is about cold coffee ready to drink is really growing very fast. It's one of the fastest growing segments probably for over 7 years now. And I think this trend continues. And this trend is not only in Europe, but this trend confirmed in the other geographies like Asia as well. And in the innovation this year, we've launched in UK coffee concentrates. It gives again yet another opportunity to have convenience and great cup of coffee made from concentrate. And usually it's cold coffee as well. Cold coffee is doing pretty well. And indulgent cups, as I was mentioning, it's very strongly connected to either mixes or with the portioned coffee.
And if you look a little bit into the future now, let's say next year, 2026, or even multiple years, how do you think it will continue there on the market as well as on the consumer side? Do you think these trends will just continue, or will there be some new disruption? Do you see anything new on the horizon that we don't expect yet?
Oh, yeah, I hope, and I'm sure there will be a new horizon at certain moment. But I think we can. I expect that we will have a very strong evolution of this premiumization in the coffee market because consumers are really uncompromising. Now, if we think it over, the economic situation across Europe is quite difficult. So I think the wallets are becoming a little bit slimmer, or you have inflation, green coffee prices are skyrocketing. So you can see the trend that the consumers probably, some of the consumers will choose not to go to the cafe, but to have the same top-notch quality cup at home. And before, some years ago, it was not available, this kind of coffee. But now it is available because we have coffee systems, coffee machines. The consumer can have a coffee machine at home and take a really top class premium coffee of wide varieties and make it at home with a more accessible price. So we've recently launched the portion coffee Nescafe Dolce Gusto Neo. This is unbelievable, top class quality, great cup of coffee, all the varieties and sophistications. This premiumization, portion coffee evolution and development, it's really moving relatively fast.
If we talk about sustainability now, or if we think about more the climate, I mean, it's very obvious on the one hand, more and more countries drink coffee, more and more consumers demand coffee in all the different markets. So demand is going to grow long term. On the other hand, we have also climate change going on, and you probably are aware of this study by some Swiss scientists who say that by 2050, about half of the coffee cultivation areas that where coffee is grown today will no longer be suitable for coffee due to different temperatures, different weather conditions, and so forth. And for some countries like Brazil, this might even go up to 80%. That's what the predictions say. How do you think the coffee industry can factor this land loss or this loss in cultivation area? How can they factor that in? How can they compensate for that?
It's a very serious question, and I'm not probably as pessimistic on the a big loss of the land which will be suitable for coffee. But we should admit that coffee is quite a gentle and very capricious plant. So it needs certain climate and certain geographies for habitation. Nevertheless, I think we need to think how can we compensate this loss of the possible loss of the lands and yields with the high yields? Because there are ways to, first of all, you know that everything is, nature is adaptable.
Hmm.
First thing, and we can help the nature and we can help the coffee trees to adapt a little bit faster. I would say there is science for this one. The first thing, probably the simple first step will be to say, can we have substantially high yields from the same field? Because that's how we compensate. This is the first logical approach. You say, so you deal with the farmers and you see, can we increase yield, I don't know, 30, 50%? And it's possible. And you've mentioned Brazil, for example. Brazil is the biggest producer of coffee. They have Arabica, they have Robusta. And Arabica and Robusta, they are a little bit different in the places where they are produced and where demands on the climate. So Robusta is much more stronger tree. This is the word Robusta. So stronger tree, bigger yields. Arabica is a little bit more fragile, a little bit different taste profile of different coffees. But in Brazil, they produce both. And they're very advanced in their technologies. Let's say that they have a big farms, and these big farms usually very well equipped with quite high-end technologies. For example, I will share with you the visit in these coffee farms. We've seen that most of the coffee farms will be irrigated, which is sounds a little bit strange, but they are really all these hectares are irrigated because they would like to protect themselves and they can protect themselves of the drought. So
Hmm.
having scale, Brazilian farmers, they made the first step protecting themselves of this abrupt weather events. Let's say if they cannot do this with frost, they can do it with the drought, putting an irrigation system in place. So this is the first defense strategy. And then there is a next step, more advanced, where we are starting as Nestle as a big partner, working together with the farmers. I will elaborate a little bit more on this Nescafe plan. So we're working together, providing technical assistance, first starting on the farming, good farming practices, because having an irrigation system, you can do quite a smart things on how much you can add fertilizers, how you can help to fight the diseases of the plants. So that's where we can really help provide a technical assistance, recommendations, how to ensure that the yields are higher from the different farms. And you know that when we are buying coffee from certain farms, and we need to ensure that all our coffee in Europe is responsibly sourced. So there is specific demands how this coffee should be produced. So with these advanced agricultural practices, we can ensure that our coffee, we can name it responsibly sourced. This means that certain parameters are well established. So it is specific techniques which are applied, which allows to put responsibly sourced on the label of the every coffee lot. So we were talking about the first defense system. So it's how to improve the yields from every hectare. This is the first part. And second part will be science. So you're saying that climate is changing, so coffee yields will be impacting abrupt weather events. But some trees are better dealing with the cold weather, some from the others. You can make a selection process of the coffee plants to ensure that you have the plants which are much more resistant either to temperature or to the diseases. And this will be a second level of defense where we are distributing millions and millions of coffee plantlets, offering it to the farmers, which are better coping with the more difficult climate events, and on top they have higher yields. So this will be the approach. So you have the same land, yeah, or you increase the yields, it's really good. There in some geographies, we might observe that it will be less plantations for coffee. In some geographies, probably they will increase, I would say. When there is a demand, live in the market situation. Where there is a demand, there is a supply. It just usually there is a lag. That's what we are facing today with the very high coffee prices. There is a lag when the industry and the farmers start to react on expanding the plantations. But the good news, I can tell you that, again, returning back to what I've been sharing about Brazil, we see a lot of new coffee plantations in the development. For now, the situation is moving in the right direction. We can see quite some new plantations coming. I haven't mentioned that we have the whole R&D in Tour, who is working on developing selectioning of the best coffee trees to ensure that these plantlets later will be propagated and will be distributed. And that's, by the way, what the Brazilian farmers, they like. They know very well. So because they're quite well equipped with technologies, they're really asking for a quite advanced technical assistance. Differently, for example, to the farmers in Vietnam, who will be requesting more some basic skills, I would say, to ensure that they have know-how how to protect their crops, more on their watering system or fertilization. So we are doing these jobs in different geographies, but mostly in Brazil and in Vietnam.
Another interesting aspect is the species. Many coffee species are actually at risk of extinction yeah, due to climate change, deforestation, and so forth. What do you think? Is that stoppable, or is that something that the industry has to adapt to? Can you a little bit elaborate more on that?
I think that that we as a big players in coffee industry and us as Nestle, we have quite a big scientific job done in our R&D center in Tours, and it's a forefront of coffee innovation. So it might happen that some kinds of some types of coffee will be not suitable for this climate, but what we should care about that we working on developing and selecting and breeding the coffee plants which will be really either very strong in the yields or very strong in fighting the diseases. So it's a science. So we need to ensure that we work, I would say, ahead of the trend to ensure that we have all these specific breeds of coffee well developed, specific hybrids which will be resilient and will be able to cope with the changing climate. So do I think we can have we are in a good pace? I think we are, but probably not yet as good. Probably we are a little bit behind the curve moving, because we are now, we can see how the steel production output of green coffee been damaged in the last 3 years. So this means that we have more job to do. But nevertheless, our scientists are working really on this age of science and technology, choosing the best plants, and then they can propagate it, and then they can offer it to the world. I think their job should be done permanently, and I truly believe in science. So I think this, we need to acknowledge that some of the probably species will disappear. Nevertheless, the others will appear.
So what we've focused on until now was mostly the ecological impact of climate change. If we now take this, what we talked earlier, what we talked about earlier, the shift in the cultivation areas that will leave some markets probably losing some cultivation areas, as we said, for example, Brazil. Other markets will gain cultivation areas. The scientists there forecast, for example, that the US and China will gain. What does it mean for you from a perspective of social sustainability when we look at the farmers? Because yeah, is it really realistic that then Brazilian farmers, although they have higher outputs, if they lose some lands, they are probably not moving to another country. So what does it mean for you to the whole ecosystem of coffee farming?
So I think that first, my first belief is the process will not go that fast. And there everything is, including the production output, is a lot identified by the demand and supply. I would say the first step, as I was saying, I do believe that the farmers will work to improve their productivity of their field. Then, if they're dissatisfied, and if this improved productivity of their plantation is not satisfactory for them, the major risk is that they will stop producing it there, because if you are not satisfied with what you can earn, and you can earn something else on different cultures, so this is the risk. But you know that coffee trees, when they're small, they are quite weak. So it's very good that you put a shadow trees around the plantations. And usually you recommend specific trees. And certain moment in Vietnam, the farmers been using a lot of big trees, durian, to shadow coffee trees when the coffee trees are growing. And at certain moment, it was much more profitable to have the yield of durian, because it is a shadow tree. Nevertheless, it was economically reasonable to increase the output of durian and not coffee. So I think this we don't want to happen as well, I would say. But now, if you think it over, coffee prices, green coffee prices are now exceptionally very high. So now farmers are very happy. And as I'm saying, now they are increasing the number of hectares they allocate for coffee, because usually farmers, they have different cultures. And so, and this is good, because when the coffee price is high, we can first expect that the new plantations will come in game. So I think that next 3 years, expect dramatic decline in coffee plantations. No, I expect, and vice versa. I hope that it will be more new plantations coming in game, and it will be more yields, because the coffee prices, green coffee prices, are so high that farmers are now happy as never. And this is really good, because they are now, we've seen how they are upgrading the whole the whole technologies. We've seen these big machines in Brazil for harvesting coffee. This is a new tech, I would say. You have all this dosing and dosing system to support coffee plants, fighting pests. So if you look on the other geographies like Vietnam as well, the yields are not that bad, and the green coffee prices is very high. So for now, I expect that plantations will grow at certain, at least in Brazil, in the nearest future. And then, in terms of compensation of the other geographies, it might happen, but it's not happening in one day. So you see, unless it will be some really such a big weather event that everywhere coffee plantations will escape. I do not believe in this, honestly. I think that it's a step-by-step process. I do believe the quantity of Chinese plantations in coffee will continue growing, because it's more suitable. But it will take some time to adjust. And now still Brazil and Vietnam are two big ones, two big suppliers of green coffee. But you have another one which is growing as well. Indonesia is evolving, China will be evolving. So I think there will be places in the world where the coffee plants will happily grow, and I'm sure the farmers will deal with these precious coffee beans, which are now in such a high demand. So short-term trends I expect will be positive. Long-term trends, we need to work on this one. I think this should be an industry effort because the coffee is very important. The coffee industry is a big and important industry, so industry effort is needed to ensure that we continue serve consumers a great cup of coffee.
You said now that for the short term you're quite optimistic. If we look a little bit long term now, let's do a little time travel to 2050. What would you say, what do you expect in 2025 years? How will we drink as much coffee in the world? Will we drink more coffee? Will the demand of coffee, will it be matched? How will it look like?
Let's start with the growing population. I think the population will be bigger, so I hope that consumers will be consuming more coffee. In terms of type of coffee and kind of coffee, I think cold will stay for quite some time as a trend. And if we think on these trends towards premiumization of coffee, I think that premium cups, as it is quite now with this climate change and the very high coffee prices, I would say there are consumers who will be craving for this very special, especially crafted cup of coffee for them. So I think the demand, I do not expect the demand will go down. I think the demand should stay quite high for coffee in cups. In terms of supply, there is a big job to be done, as I'm saying. So I think the supply might be under certain risk. I do not believe that coffee plantlets will disappear. So if they will disappear, what we've been doing all these years, developing the new breeds which will be more sustainable to cope with the climate change. I think that farmers will continue producing coffee. There are certain issues which we are not discussing that much today here, but apart from the climate change, there are many other things. So because the farmers, you need some continuity in the farming. So there is the whole big story of how to ensure that the young farmers, they stay to farm. They do not move out of the farms. This is yet another big dilemma which put a yet additional pressure on green coffee output, I would say, to find people who will be willing to work in the coffee farms. So yeah, probably we may envision that we will have bit different coffee producing regions. Positive thing, I will tell you that when the demand exists, and demand is not very changing very fast, for us and overall the way how we consume products, it's rooted in it's a big cultural things. We consume coffee in a certain way, and we give these habits and rituals to our families, to our kids. So this demand is not changing that fast. Apart from the new trends, for example, this cold coffee is a big thing which is born by or born from these younger consumers, probably it will continue to evolve. So a bit more pressure on the green coffee output we can expect. We can expect that the premium coffee will be emerging, evolving. I think that the cold coffee will stay with us for long, especially on the go, because I think in the way how we now organized in our life, I think the time when we can peacefully sit and have and enjoy a cup of coffee longer than we usually can afford, I would say. So now on the go, coffee will continue evolving. But overall, I think that industry will develop as it has been developing in the last many, many years. So probably we can expect it will be some new breakthrough proposition which will allow consumer to enjoy a cup of coffee in a different way. But I'm more positive, saying that no, it cannot disappear. So I think that we have, as all species, as us, as coffee trees, we have the time to adapt. And adaptability in the changing world is everything. And we are here with the whole industry to support this adaptability to ensure that coffee trees are surviving well this quite big pressure of the climate change that we face today.
Then I would say let's meet again. I mean, before anyway, but let's talk again in 20, 25 years and check your predictions, Jana. For now, I thank you very much for the talk today. It was really insightful. And I think what's left is wishing you all the best for the future. Thank you, Jana.
Thank you very much. And it was really a pleasure to discuss such a great topic as coffee. And I'm sure in 25 years we'll meet each other and we grab our favorite cups and it will still be available. So I'm sure that it will stay as a very strong connecting coffee as a strong connecting element for many people. So thank you for inviting.
This episode of the Coffee Chronicles is part of the Food Economy podcast series, produced by Deloitte Switzerland. In the food economy, we explore market trends and the future of food with expert insights. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a review. Thank you for listening, stay tuned for our next episode, and see you next time.